Okay. All right. Yeah, looks like I'm in the right one. And let me mute the sound on it. All right, let's do it. All right.
Yep. All good.
The Miami Dolphins are at crisis time, or are they? Miami is 9-4 in first place in the AFC East, but the Dolphins are coming off that shocking, horrendous, ugly 28-27 loss to Tennessee. They blow the 14-point lead in the last 3 minutes. On top of that, injuries are mounting. Despite all that, I think that this Dolphins team is different than previous Dolphins teams. We're going to talk about that. Which side are you on? What's up, Dolphins fans? Welcome to this week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. I'm your host, Chris Perkins, your South Florida Sun Sentinel Miami Dolphins columnist. That's David Furones, your South Florida Sun Sentinel Dolphins beat writer. As a reminder, you can be like Seth Levitt from the Fish Tank with OJ McDuffie. You can get this podcast on iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I say that because Seth, while he's taking his walk, he listens to the podcast. He gets incensed and then he either calls me or texts me. So we have great conversations. I love to have Seth talking to me. I need to get him on the show. I know Seth from like 20 years from when he was with the Dolphins my first season.
Catchphrase too. Catchphrase. So, dive in.
Yeah. So we need to get Seth on the show, man. We need to get Seth on the show. So yeah. So if you want to be like Seth, you can download this podcast. We appreciate you guys tuning in live. And we're going to take more of your questions. We're going to be more interactive today because we know you've got a lot of questions after that big loss against Tennessee. So, look, we're going to also turn the focus to this week's game against the Jets at Hard Rock Stadium. What does that Tennessee collapse mean? We're going to talk about that. We're going to put it in perspective. How do you see the 3-game finish of Dallas, Baltimore, Buffalo? We'll talk about that. We've always got the Furones bonus. Who do you trust more, the offense or the defense? We're going to make our Dolphins-Jets picks. There's a lot to cover, even a hard knock or two. Let's dive in. All right, so segment one, these are not the same old Dolphins, David Furones. I'll give you 3 reasons why I don't think these are the same old Dolphins. I don't fear a December collapse from this team. Reason number 1, the trio of Vic Fangio, Jalen Ramsey, and Tyreek Hill. They are difference makers. By the way, Jalen Ramsey gave everybody foot massagers for Christmas. Tyreek Hill gave all his teammates Segway scooters. So there's that. Reason number 2 has nothing to do with anything. Reason number 2, these aren't the same old Dolphins. Mike McDaniel is a better coach. Is he a good coach? I wrote a column yesterday on sunsentinel.com asking that question. I think the jury is still out on whether Mike McDaniel is a good coach. He's innovative. He's a breath of fresh air. If you look at his record, I'm not sure you could yet say that he's a good coach, but I still do think that these Dolphins are going to win a playoff game. I think at the end of the season, we'll say Mike McDaniel is a good coach. Reason number 3, I think these aren't the same old Dolphins. They have 3 of their last 4 games at home. This is a good home team. I know they just lost to Tennessee at home. I know that Vegas game was 20-13 at home. I think home field is going to be good for these Dolphins. So, Furones, that's what I say. These aren't the same old Dolphins. Those are my reasons. What do you think? Are you scared? Or are you fearing the December collapse that a lot of other fans are fearing from this team?
I am so scared. I am trembling over here. No. You gave me 3 reasons. Yes, yes, and yes. Okay, there. Oh, I should expand. I should elaborate. All right. Yeah, first, all right, you mentioned the 3 difference makers. Okay, well, and Tyreek Hill, sure, he was already there last year, but Fangio and Ramsey, they make you believe in and trust this defense more. Question will now be how healthy Tyreek is moving forward, because we see that ankle injury lingering and then even aggravated on Monday night. And that loss to the Titans really revealed how different this offense is when he's not on the field. I believe in Mike McDaniel. Yes, he had that 5-game losing streak last year, but I think he has grown. And I did find it interesting, though, that he opened the team up, as revealed on Hard Knocks, to thinking about that losing streak from last year in the context of getting over the hump of starting December with the win against Washington as they got into December. So that kind of makes me wonder now, once you have one loss, since you already opened the team up to that kind of mentality, now does that creep back in? But I think he's got the team in the right mindset to not let that happen. We'll get into picks later, but I mean, I do see them bouncing back at home again in a game that they should win. And what else did you mention there? The home games, yes, they've been good at home, but obviously this last game notwithstanding, which I take more as a wake-up call than really some huge cause for concern. There was a lot that went on in that game that wasn't what you normally have with this Dolphins team, and then even the late lead blown, that was very uncharacteristic of this defense. Just to have that happen, especially against a rookie quarterback, I don't see that as a consistent thing. It felt like it was just 3 or 4 really bad minutes of play that just compounded, although a lot of the earlier minutes in that game were really bad too, and the Dolphins should have been beating the Titans by a lot more, so it never came down to that, but here we are.
Yeah. I mean, for Owners, it started off badly with the fumble at the 4-yard line, and then it ends badly. In between, we saw some decent stuff. Look, the Dolphins ran the ball well, 158. They stopped the run, which are 2 crucial elements for December football. They won the turnover battle 3-1, but it's that collapse, man. They lost concentration there at the end. And look, this is a good time to welcome in our texters and everybody on the chat line. Roger Allman, what's up? Peter McDowell coming at us from Canada. I like that, baby. What's up? Dave Harbor, Judy Williams, as always. Pretty Boy, as always. A lot of our regulars, Patrick Becchio. What's going on? Raphael Courtwright back in here. What's going on? So, listen, Rob is in here. So there was a question here that I had seen from Dave Harbor. Here we go. So here we go, Furones. From Dave Harbor, abandoning the run at the goal line over and over is very concerning. Does the offensive coaching staff just not have confidence with the short yardage run team? Do we need to add a massive back? I'll start off by saying, I think you asked Mike McDaniel about this yesterday, the play selection on some of the third downs or some of the goal line or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Chris Brooks could help, but tell me what you think and what McDaniel said.
Yeah, well, I asked more about if Chase Claypool actually, and Jeff Wilson's one, Chase Claypool's one, if he could be sort of a solution down by the goal line. I know Mike McDaniel mentioned that Cedric Wilson earned those reps over Claypool due to his week of practice, and I guess his understanding of the offense goes into that. Other things that he's showing in practice while we're not watching. But yeah, I mean, Claypool is a big body, 6'4" receiver, so you wonder if, let's say, 3rd and goal at the 2, you're throwing up that fade to Claypool instead of Wilson, if it could go differently. Maybe some other situations where you can get him incorporated. I know Mike McDaniel said they had certain packages of plays for him, but just never got around to it. It seems like that's happened a few times. I remember him saying that after the loss to Philadelphia. So it seems like they have stuff deeper in the playbook for him, that it's not sort of the priority or some of the first things they go to. But yeah, I mean, I think the play selection down by the goal line, that's a huge deal. You saw it really once they did score those 2 touchdowns late. They went to the ground game. They pounded the Titans with Raheem Mostert punching in those 2 scores, 2 plays after those turnovers, fumble recoveries, one on a muff punt, one off the errant pitch from Levis to Derrick Henry, and Bradley Chubb ended up with it. So you were really gifted that field position and they took advantage of it going to the ground. So why not do it more often? I know Mike McDaniel sort of philosophically, he believes in getting the right look that he needs from the defense to go to certain plays, kind of sort of similar to, I remember, what's the most famous instance of a coach not going to the ground game in a pivotal situation? It happened in the last 10 years. It's Pete Carroll having Russell Wilson throw with the Super Bowl on the line at the 1-yard line when he had Marshawn Lynch back there, and he ends up throwing an interception. One thing I remember he mentioned after that in the press conference was he didn't get the look that he wanted. So I know philosophically it's one thing Mike McDaniel thinks maybe he needs to shift a little bit more on the spectrum to say, well, even if we don't get the look, it's here's what we're doing. We're going to pound the rock at you. And just that mentality of you're not going to stop it, even if you are so prepared. And this is an O-line that has run blocked well, regardless of who's been in all the shuffling. So, maybe that's sort of the mindset that needs to shift a little bit more.
Well said. From Peter McDowell on the chat, are you guys concerned about Tua's lack of mobility? It seems like he moves in quicksand and does not have the scrambling ability which the true elite quarterbacks possess. Love to hear your thoughts. I'll say this. Every quarterback has his limitations. Tua is not a runner. He is not a scrambler. He is not an especially agile quarterback. He's very smart. He can get rid of the ball quickly. He's very accurate. He is a Pro Bowl level quarterback, but you're right. He does not possess those quick feet in the pocket, that escapability. So Mike McDaniel plays to the strengths of his team, right? The offensive line isn't that great. You get rid of the ball quickly. You have receivers that can get open very fast. So that's another reason to get rid of the ball quickly and get it in their hands. The getting rid of the ball quick helps deal with the offensive line, helps deal with Tua's, he doesn't have magic feet. So it helps deal with that. And you combine that with an offensive line that, quite frankly, has not been healthy. I don't know how many games the starting five coming out of camp have played last year or this year together. It's not many. So I think getting rid of the ball quickly plays to your strengths and helps hide your weaknesses. But I think Peter McDowell is correct. Your thoughts? Is that being respectful to Tua also, Furones? I don't want to disrespect the man now.
Yeah, we know what his strengths are.
Right.
He plays with that accuracy, that anticipation in the pocket, the point guard of the offense. So, and one thing that was said in the comment that like the true elite quarterbacks possess, not all elite quarterbacks possess the ability to scramble and run the ball. Sure, we see it like Josh Allen has that ability for sure. Lamar Jackson, I mean. Of course, and several others, but it's not like Peyton Manning possessed that. It's not, Tom Brady, he would move well within the pocket, but he wasn't going to scramble, and sometimes he did efficiently, but it's not like he was feared for his legs. So yeah, it's not something that every elite quarterback needs to possess. It's a nice tool to have to complement other things.
Yeah. So all right, well let's migrate over to segment 2, Furones, and look. We're going to talk about what this Tennessee collapse means. This was an ugly game. You're ahead by 14 with like 3 minutes and change to go, and then all of a sudden it's gone. It's collapsed. In the grand scheme of things, I agree with you. This is a wake-up call and nothing more. It's not a cause for panic. I did see somebody on the text line saying that they think that that this could end up 9-8 like last season. But by the way, happy birthday to Raphael Courtwright. He says it's his birthday. So happy birthday to you. You're one of our regulars. Like to see you in there. But I don't think there's a cause for panic here. Now, I'm shocked that this Vic Fangio defense let freaking Will Levis march down the field on you, right? And so I'm very concerned about that. But I do think that this confirms my claim that Tyreek is the MVP, and that's no disrespect to Tua. Quite honestly, that's zero disrespect to Tua. But I do think that this offense is about Tyreek and the threat of Tyreek. And there's no shame in that because, look, for a long time, Belichick's offense was about Brady, right? Right now, I would say Andy Reid's offense is about Patrick Mahomes. I know, Travis Kelce is there, but there's no – that's not a flaw. You're playing to your strength. I think that's what the Dolphins do with their offense. But my point is, if Tyreek is not there and at 100%, I don't think Tua can beat you. I don't think Jaylen Waddle can beat you. I don't think Raheem Mostert can beat you. They're respectable. They can get you 3 touchdowns. I'm not sure they can get you 28 points. You need Tyreek for that. They can get you 21, 24. So I think that the Tennessee collapse pointed that out also. The offense scored 2 touchdowns, and they were gifted the field position both times. When Tyreek isn't there, they absorbed a 79-yard per day from Jaylen Waddle, which is respectable. 6 for 79. They absorbed, 96 yards from Raheem Mostert, and the offense was still stuck in the mud. So having said all that, I do think this Dolphins team is different again, and I don't think that collapse is cause for panic.
And Perk, that quote from you was always so beautifully said about it's about Tyreek and the threat of Tyreek. It was always so perfectly put, and then we really have to give you your credit where credit is due after that Monday night game. I think it certainly revealed it. It was always a sort of a question, a little bit. Okay, and I always was of the thought, okay, it's sort of the marriage of all of those things. Is you have Tyreek, you have Tua, who has improved immensely in years 3 and 4, and under Mike McDaniel, and with Tyreek, that it's just a very good marriage of all those things. But yes, a little bit more of the percentage of it. And yes, it's still all of those things, but just a greater percentage of it, a plurality of the 100% of what this offense is. It goes to Tyreek Hill and how important he is. And the fans were chanting MVP for him when they were trying to will him to get back into the game when he had the initial injury scare. And then he sprints over to the sideline, doesn't come back in until the third quarter. When he goes back in, the fans are chanting MVP, and they certainly are chanting that for Tyreek. Although I was joking in the press box, no, they're chanting MVPs plural, that because they have 2 candidates. They're the main team that has 2 candidates up in the running for it. But it was telling. It was not only just what the fans were saying. The game itself showed, yes, he is the most valuable piece to this offense.
Yeah, there we go. That's very well put. You're so eloquent, Feronis. That's why we have you on here. I like that.
You're just returning the compliment because I started
that's right.
Complimenting me. I appreciate it. Yours was better said, Perk. Yours was better said.
All right. Hey, let's go out here to the chat line. Tony Reese asked a very relevant question here. Same thing I believe Judy Williams asked. Why did Fangio refuse to send the house at Levis like he did at Herbert in the first game? Vic Fangio says that the blitz to him, the blitz is more effective when used sparingly, that he relies on his defense to apply pressure, be effective, get the job done. And so that's what we saw against Herbert, right? Where Bethel had one, and I think did Van Ginkel or Sealer or somebody I thought came on a stun. I might be remembering that wrong. But what did you think about the defensive philosophy in those last few minutes, Frones?
Yeah, they didn't get pressure on him, and Levis, I mean, give him credit because he also scrambled a lot in that game, showed a lot of toughness. I mean, I thought he was going to be out of the game when he tried to tackle Zach Sealer 2 yards into the end zone when he's crossing the goal line. Like, what are you doing, dude? That's a 300-pound man that is rumbling into the end zone, and I think he's looking for Will Levis. I mean, you're talking about a guy who, as a defensive lineman, you're trying to get hits on the quarterback. All of a sudden, you have the ball in your hands, and he's in your way to get in the end zone. You have an opportunity to punish him on your way to the end zone, to kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. So, but man, that guy is tough. I don't know how long he's going to last doing all that and taking the hits that he's willing to take. But yeah, I mean, give him credit for that late in the game and after how many shots he had taken throughout, both because even though the Dolphins only had 1 quarterback or 1 sack, they did have several hits on him. So he took some shots, he scrambled, and boy, still had it in the end, and still just playing through the final thought clocks, triple zeros. It was very impressive, and some miscommunications on the back end for sure. That's how DeAndre Hopkins is running free. I know the first touchdown, you're not as worried because you just built this 2-touchdown lead very quickly. And then you're thinking, okay, yeah, I mean, you go into that soft coverage, the prevent defense, you just don't want to give up a quick one. But they still matriculated the ball very quickly down the field, scored in a 2-minute drill, and then got the ball back very quickly again, which is just as big of an issue was that offensive drive in between, not getting a first down. And then also you still have a chance with 1:49 left after that, and you still can't get it through. So it's really, like Mike McDaniel said, a team loss. So yes, they gave up the 2 touchdown drives, but to not be able to put the game away once you get the ball back in between those 2, and then all you need is a field goal at the end, and with 1:49, and you still don't get it, 4th and 2, again, a short yardage situation actually, and you end up missing out. And then the play call before that, going to Achane, doesn't get out of bounds, doesn't get the yardage necessary. Both of them just a mixture of a lot of things there that needed to go wrong and did.
All right, here's a question from Legend. Here's something that gets to the heart of things. How strong is your confidence that Miami can make the AFC Championship, especially with Cowboys, Ravens, Bills left to close out the season? And please stop apologizing to Tua. He is what he is. All right. So, okay, I'll stop apologizing to Tua. I have almost no confidence.
Not a question. That was a command.
Right, that was a command. Yeah. I'm very aware that people are hypersensitive. When I say Tyreek should be MVP, people took that as a slight against Tua, and I like try to explain like I have nothing against the guy. Anyway, how strong is my confidence Miami makes the AFC Championship? Not very strong. Here's what I say. I think the Dolphins will win a playoff game. That's as far as I can go. And I said that probably a couple of weeks ago. That's as far as I can go with this team. I said that they were going to be at the start of the season 10-7. I'm thinking 11-6 is probably going to be the number. 10-7 is still very realistic. I know what that would require. That would require losing 3 of the last 4. Injuries are piling up. So my confidence that they can make it to the AFC Championship, they almost need home field advantage. I'm still a little skeptical, well, a lot skeptical of this team going on the road and beating a top team.
Yeah, that's an issue. AFC Championship game. Now, the Dolphins still control their fate to get the number 1 seed, which means then you just have one home playoff game to get to the AFC Championship game because you have the bye week in that scenario. But I was a lot more confident before this last Monday night game. If you asked me before that, I thought, okay, yeah. I mean, they have it in line where they have that path to the number 1 seed, which they still do, but now it just seems a little bit rockier. Just because you lost a game that you should have won, you thought you were always getting those because that's one thing this Dolphins team does, although it's 0-3 in those 3 games that everyone has really pinned down as those were the ones against contenders. And now you're going to have to face some contenders again in the final stretch. So it will get difficult. I still think this team wins the division. Maybe doesn't get that 1 seed in the end, but then gets a home playoff game. And then if they're the 2 seed, then you probably like them again at home in the divisional round. So it's tough. But then you might be facing a team like the Chiefs, which has that playoff pedigree. Granted, not going on the road for any of those playoff games. The only games in the Patrick Mahomes era, postseason games that have been away from Arrowhead Stadium were the Super Bowls. So, it's looking a little rockier. I'd still put them at to get to the AFC Championship game, it's about a 50-50 proposition, honestly, to me.
Yeah, okay. Here's something before we get to the Furones bonus. We will take one more here, and this is from Rob. Is something wrong with Waddle? He's a good receiver, but not elite this year. Last year, he was close to Hill. Let me start with this. I was talking in the media room yesterday about, Jaylen Waddle, and I was saying that, look, to me, Jaylen Waddle is a really good number 2 receiver. I respect Jaylen Waddle. I don't fear Jaylen Waddle. But I don't think there's many number 2 receivers in the league that you fear, right? I don't fear T. Higgins in Cincinnati. I fear Jamar Chase, their number 1. I respect T. Higgins. I don't fear him. I don't fear Devontae Smith in Philly. I fear A.J. Brown, their number 1. I respect Devontae. I don't fear him. He's not going to beat me. And that's the category I have Jaylen Waddle in, where, yes, he is a Pro Bowl caliber receiver, but I don't fear Jaylen Waddle. I respect him. Jaylen Waddle can take apart your defense, but he's not going to beat you. And so that's where I am with Jaylen Waddle. I respectfully, I don't think that he's close to Tyreek Hill. Numbers wise, yes, but defenses gear themselves around Tyreek Hill. Stopping this guy, that's your priority. That's not going to be the priority with Jaylen Waddle. Having said all that, if I'm not mistaken, Waddle is still on pace to get 1,000 yards this season. So, but he's been getting knocked around a lot. Like last game, it seems like he leaves the game more this year than the previous 2 years. Although I think he's only had 1 miss this year, and that was for that concussion.
Yeah. He's been a little banged up,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he hasn't taken the steps where coming off that big second season where you would have liked to see. Okay, yeah, this team has two true number ones. Where because you would fear two true number ones, and I think he's just kind of settled into a very good number two. And then we would have seen that number one type of play when Tyreek Hill went out for basically half of the game, from middle of the first to middle of the third. And then, sure, he still put up a team leading game in receiving, but it wasn't something like what Tyreek Hill would have done when he's in there full go. So, that's what he's had some drops this year too. I know it's sort of been consistent throughout. Some key ones, some easy ones. I like the one in Washington where that one was just really inexcusable. He's wide open, no one around him, 15 yards down the field with room to run once he turns it around, and then he's probably taken his eye off the ball a little earlier. It's actually something I want to get around to asking him at some point, but. Yeah, I'm with you where he's kind of a high-end number two. He hasn't taken a step. I expected a step this year from what we already saw last year that would have said, man, this team really has two number ones, and he's kind of just settled into he's a high-end number two.
Yeah, he is, and there's no shame in that. Not everybody can be a number one, but look, the Dolphins still have one of the best, if not the best, 1-2 punches at wide receiver in the league. I think we can agree to that.
He'd be number one on a lot of teams. There's a lot of teams where he would be the number one receiver. But yeah, just I don't know. You probably put him at like out of number one receivers, he'd be like in the 20s or around 15 to 20 range of top receivers in the NFL. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. So time for our Furones bonus.
Oh, the Furones bonus.
There we go. There we go, baby. All right, so here's our question. Who do you trust more, the Dolphins offense or the Dolphins defense? This is yours. Take it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Don't answer my bonus first.
That's
all right.
That's right.
So is Tyreek Hill healthy in this scenario? All right, if he's there, I mean, we're still talking about and his full self. We're still talking about an offense that's number one in total offense, number one in passing offense, number two in rushing offense, number three in scoring. So that's pretty trustworthy. But if he's hobbled the rest of the way, and this O-line is as banged up as it has been all year, now without Connor Williams, and we know he'll be out for the rest of the season with the ACL tear that was confirmed by Mike McDaniel. We don't know how much longer Rob Hunt will be out. Then I got to say where we stand now, the defense, even with those two late drives surrendered against rookie Will Levis and the Titans, I feel like that was more of an anomaly, like I said earlier, than what they really are. Listen, this defense is still number two since week 5. I'm sure it would have remained number one from that point had those drives not happened. They're dinged up too, with Javon Holland missing time. Jalen Phillips, now he's going to be out for the season. Jerome Baker, you're going to have to be without him for the next several weeks. But with Ramsey now back and Howard back there, and they may be getting Holland back and safety Deshaun Elliott, if those two guys can come back soon, I think that was a big part of those late drives allowed. Duke Riley has slid in for Jerome Baker. I trust him. He's a good communicator, can be in there. AVG, JPP are a little bit alphabet soup there, but Van Ginkel and Jason Pierre-Paul, and now they just added Melvin Ingram to the practice squad. If they elevate him, they can maybe produce some of the pass rush, not all of it. I know you don't just replace a guy like Jalen Phillips. You kind of missed him in the Titans game where you didn't rack up all those sacks, but all things considered, I say the defense, even with a little bit of the current injuries, but I would trust them a little bit more. But this is a very tight one to me, but especially with Tyreek Hill sort of iffy with that ankle. He's probably going to have to go through the rest of the season not 100%. Then that sort of puts the defense over the edge right now to me.
Well, my philosophy on this offense, that I don't think they show up in big games. And I've written about this in the offseason, and look, they didn't show up against Buffalo. They didn't show up against Philly. They didn't show up against Kansas City. The 20 points against the Raiders. This last game, they scored, again, 2 touchdowns, and they were both gifted to them. So I think this is a very creative offense. I don't think it's trustworthy against the top teams in the league, especially on the road. against the top teams in the league. I still need to be convinced. And look, we can go to the chat now and talk about some things that we see with this offense. There were questions about the center position, and I've just lost my place. Who was asking about the center position on here? But that is a question. What about your true center? Now, John Yang on the chat is going off on Tua and saying that Tua doesn't win any big games. That was my column about Mike McDaniel yesterday, is that, I've got to see it. I like Mike McDaniel as a person. I think he's creative. I think he's innovative as an offensive mind. I think as a head coach, he's a breath of fresh air. But I've got to see the victories. I've got to see him beat these top teams. I've got to see him win a playoff game this year. It's his offense. So I actually trust this defense more than this offense. The offense is having injury problems. That's a complicating factor with their success and my questions about them so far this year. But let's see. And we had a couple of questions on here about why they're throwing on 3rd and short on the goal line. Here it is from Troy. Why are we still throwing jump balls to Waddle and Hill instead of Claypool and Wilson? I trust the Dolphins from Rob. I trust the Dolphins defense more if we're missing 4 O linemen. And that's a concern. I saw a couple other things on here. Why aren't the Dolphins from Legend? Why aren't the Dolphins playing Claypool and Chosen, especially when Tyreek went down? Raphael Courtright, Tyreek is our tight end 1 and wide receiver 1 to 3, Waddle wide receiver 4. I think that there are questions. I'm not down with the Tua thing. I put that more on Mike McDaniel. But this team, this offense, I need to see it from this offense. Quite honestly, I need more convincing. It's a hard offense to defend when everything is going well and they're playing equal or lesser opponent. But if they hit some adversity against a good team, whether it's being on the road or having an injury or whatever, they have problems. I give them a lot of respect for the Chargers' victory this year, but I know what the Chargers have turned into, but that's a quality road victory. That was a big game for the opener. We didn't know what the Chargers were going to be. I still give them credit for beating the Giants here. The Giants were a playoff team last year. I know they're just 5-8 now. They're not a good team. Tommy DeVito, baby.
Oh, Tommy DeVito. Tommy DeVito.
Exactly. But I need to see more from this offense, Furones. That I don't trust it yet in big games.
Yeah. No, I'm with you right there. That's So that's why I picked the defense at this point in time. And the injuries really racking up right now, especially on the offensive side. Wasn't it just a couple weeks ago? We were looking at all the injuries when we attended practices. Was it going into the Jets week, maybe the Commanders week? All of them were on offense, and then now even more so. But although now we've added Jalen Phillips with the Achilles tear, Jerome Baker with the knee, and now Javon Holland and Deshaun Elliott on the back end. So now really both sides are racking up, but a little bit more on the offense and for some time now.
Hey, this from Judy Williams. Fangio should be getting a ton more heat for that prevent defense. We're the ones who put the heat on him. Should he be getting more heat? I'll say this, the Fangio defense, I like what I've seen. So this might just be a hiccup. I don't know what Vic's style is. Again, I blame the Fangio defense for that double doink playoff loss that Chicago had against Philly. The defense was Chicago's identity, right? With Akeem Hicks and Khalil Mack and that crew. You can't let Philly score. You can't let it come down to a field goal. I know that's what ultimately decided the game, but the defense, you're the strength. You can't let them score. It's how I look at this offense is you can't leave it up to the defense. You can't leave it up to a kicker. You've got to take charge Dolphins offense. You've got to score. So, with the Fangio defense, again, maybe that was a hiccup. I don't know. I need a bigger sample size. Vic is not an aggressive blitz type of guy. So after one performance like this, I don't know how much heat I should put on him. I need to see this again, this scenario one more time. I'm sorry, I need to see the scenario one more time. And that way I'll kind of know what to think.
I wasn't sure if you were getting into mocking someone with a different voice or something, but it's all right. Yeah, a bigger sample size you probably need. I mean, if that was like how you lose a playoff game or are eliminated from postseason contention off of that, then that's huge. Like the same way Buffalo gave up in 13 seconds the field goal to the Chiefs that one year in the divisional round, then yeah, that's immense against a defensive coordinator and the play calls there late in the game. But yeah, it is one situation, and then also it was really a team meltdown because then not only that, you didn't get a first down when you got the ball back in between. So 20 seconds ran off the clock. You gave it right back to them. So allow them to just expand on the momentum. Then also the 2-point conversion. That was huge because then you stop just that one play. Then you force them to have another 2-point conversion situation on the second touchdown just to tie. Whereas then they're just kicking an extra point for the win. So that one play also was there, and then not scoring the field goal after. So you allowed 15 straight points, and then on 2 drives you don't even get down the field for 1 first down in between, and then you don't get into field goal range after that. When you're in 4-down territory, you have 4 downs to get 10 yards, and you fail to do that. So really, it was all aspects of the team just breaking down in those final possessions on both sides. But yes, I mean, you have to hit Fangio with some criticism for it, but if it becomes a consistent problem, not really off of that one anomaly. So we'll see.
Yeah. By the way, real quick, special teams, when I did the report card this week, I mentioned that they had a field goal blocked, but they also recovered the muff punt. I forgot the Blake Ferguson penalty that was in there. Is that a big deal? I mean, it's another special teams theme. I thought Braxton Berrios was very effective returning the ball, giving them good field position and everything like that. But as penalties go and boneheaded play, it's not up there with Chubb and his penalty. It's not up there with Eichenberg having 2 fumbles, two hold, a hold, a false start, and the snap. It didn't turn into anything. I guess it's just a minus on the special teams. I forgot to check that box. Is that a big deal?
No, it was not on my mind at all. You just mentioned it clearly wasn't on your mind when you wrote the grades.
It really wasn't.
I'm not concerned about that Blake Ferguson needs some talking to clean that up.
I remember weird things. All right, so let's go on to segment 3 for Onis. The Blake Ferguson penalty. What is your?
Oh, we're not having a full segment on Blake Ferguson needing to cut down on his.
Right, needing to clean his act up. Right, that's right. He just got an extension. What are they doing? Right.
Yeah. Right. Oh, and remember to vote for him for Pro Bowl AFC long snapper, who he is leading.
Look at you.
I don't know. Maybe some fans don't vote for him because of that penalty. Maybe some fans, when they're going to vote for AFC long snapper, they say, no, we just watched them get penalized on Monday Night Football. My vote's got to go somewhere else.
they would be as troubled mentally as I am. I would worry for people like that, like I worry for myself. All right, segment 3. What are you seeing for Dallas, Baltimore, Buffalo? That trio, that tough trio to finish for owners. I'm looking at 1 and 2. I'm looking at you lose to Dallas, you lose at Baltimore, and you beat Buffalo here in the finale. I've got them beating the Jets, so that would be. Well, I just ruined the last segment. Anyway, that would be an 11. That would be an 11-6 finish. That you would win the AFC East. I think injuries are a major concern, but my concern is still this team, this offense in big time games against big time opponents. So I'm thinking 1 and 2 again. Lose to Dallas, lose at Baltimore, beat Buffalo.
Oh, boy, you've got it coming down to that regular season finale, don't you?
Yep,
for the
I
AFC
do.
East. That one's going to be for the AFC East in your scenario there. I'll just say it's a scary proposition because the momentum the Bills would carry into that game and the downward trend the Dolphins would be on, it becomes iffy there. You really need to beat the Jets this week and have the Cowboys beat the Bills to get it back to 3 games with 3 remaining. That would make it where the magic number is 1 for the division, because then the next win clinches the division. But that's also why the Titans' loss was so huge. You could be clinching this week if you just took care of business in that game. I think they split between Dallas and Baltimore. I cannot believe these Dolphins will start 0-5 in games against contenders where we really measure them, because that's what they would be. Because when you think back to they're already 0-3 with the Bills, Eagles, Chiefs game, and that storyline will just become so huge at that point. If they have then compounded that with losses to the Cowboys and the Ravens and just be at 0-5 in those types of games, going into that critical finale against the Bills again, I can't tell you which yet of those 2 they would win between the Cowboys and Ravens. I kind of have to get there first, but I think they split those 2. And then the game against the Bills, maybe by then the Dolphins are locked into something. But if it's meaningful for both teams, I would have Miami winning that one at home in the end, although it is that scary proposition that I mentioned. But but I think they do end up splitting going into that. And then they're in a better situation where if things go with the Bills losing to the Cowboys and the Dolphins beating the Jets, they would have clinched by then with that split, at least the AFC East. And then sort of coming down to whether there is seeding that is on the line based on that outcome, or if you can keep the Bills out of the playoffs. I think you really want that win if it's a situation where you've already got the division and then it's a matter of whether the Buffalo can get in with a win. Then you want to make sure you knock them out before they get to the postseason, because you don't want to deal with them probably come playoff time. Out of all the wild card teams, the teams vying for those wild card spots, that would be the team that is scariest. So if you have a chance to keep them out in that game, definitely take care of that week 18, and you don't want to see them again with a 2-0 advantage on the season in the season series, then coming back to Hard Rock Stadium either a week later or 2 weeks later, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, that would be true. That would be true fear-inducing playoff game right there, man. You do not want to see that. Hey, I still, Verona's, I don't give flowers, that very, very easily. So I've still got doubts about all of these teams. I know Dallas, my big thing with Dallas was win a big game. It was kind of like with the Dolphins. They just did that last week. I still got to see a little bit more from Dallas. Baltimore, my thing with them. No lead is safe, even at home. We saw that last week. They blew that 4th quarter lead, although they did end up winning the game. And then Buffalo, Josh Allen. He keeps both teams in the game at the same time. So, I see the Dolphins. With all 4 of these teams, I'm including the Dolphins, Dallas, Baltimore, and Buffalo. I see big weaknesses, big gaps. So it's kind of hard to say for sure, but I'm thinking 1 and 2 in that scenario, and 11 and 6.
Breaking news. We have some breaking news as the show is going on. That the NFL has approved an international game in Sao Paulo, Brazil, for 2024. So, and you know which team has the international marketing rights in Brazil? It's the Miami Dolphins. So it seems likely they would be, now that we have that they would be the home team in that scenario. So now I'm the one asking you thoughts on that, Perk, as we react to this. Now it's been in the works for a while. We saw John Sutcliffe from ESPN Deportes reported last week. Saw some more reports yesterday, and then now all the big dogs: Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero, Adam Schefter are all reporting it right now.
I'm all for that. Spread the game, go international with it. I would hope that the Dolphins would not lose a home game. But spread the word, baby. I get this game all over the world. I like what the NBA has become. I covered the NBA from 02 to 12, and one thing, when you got to the finals, you saw reporters from Brazil, from Germany, from Japan, from China, France, from all over the world. And so it was a beautiful thing to see the game spread, and hopefully American football can do that. Hopefully the Dolphins are a part of that. Let me ask you this. With final record for the Dolphins, Hank Capon on the chat says, fins up all, 13-4. Here we go. Do you see 13-4?
Well, that means a sweep for the rest of the way. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough road to go sweep, and I mean so I have them. So if I have a split of those two, I have them beating the Jets. Oh no, I already spoiled the prediction. I think we both did, and then a split in the last two, and then it just depends on if there's something on the line for the Buffalo game at home. So I do have at least 2 wins, so 2-2, maybe 3-1. Boy, when I look at it on the surface, so 3-1 with the last four is tough. Yeah, so either I think 2-2 finish in the last four, and so then that puts you at 11-6 there. Yeah, with the possibility of 3-1 if you get the win you should against the Jets, split Baltimore, Dallas, and then if you win at home against Buffalo, then that could get you 12-5 there. But yeah, I don't see 13-4. I think the Dolphins still have one more regular season loss in them down the final stretch.
Yeah. And in the chat, thanks to Banana and Clark Hartman, Harper Jones, Elliot Zavision, I believe it is, Zach Free, Ocean Breeze, Detail. Thanks for joining us. Glad to see you. The Vic Fangio heat is not stopping in the chat. Harper Jones, they have one of the best off the ball blitzing safeties in the league, and Fangio won't use them for that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a big deal. And I mean, he's playing so many snaps in this game. Now, his philosophy down those final minutes is you don't want to give up a big play. Well, even though you don't give up the long touchdown, you still do when DeAndre Hopkins is running free and getting, 36 yards on that play, and just giving them easy throws to go down the field. So Brandon Jones is in those moments with Javon Holland and Deshaun Elliott out. Just when either one of them is out, then he's in. And that's his best trait. That's his best trait as a safety. So, good coaches are always able to adjust to the personnel they have. So when he's in the games, then there's some adjustment that Fangio probably needs to make, because those aren't situations that Brandon Jones is best at. Is playing the traditional safety roles that Fangio wants his safeties playing in those zone coverages.
Yeah, well, I've got to see a little bit more from Fangio. And I'll say this also, the guys, you're going to hear the guys next season saying, we understand the Fangio defense a lot better now that we've spent a year in it. Just like you heard the offensive players saying in training camp, and Tyreek, I understand the offense a lot more. So, I think Fangio is still undergoing a feeling out process. It's only been a few games with Jaylen Ramsey. I'm not making excuses. I'm offering an explanation that, we still haven't seen the full scope of this defense. And I don't think that Fangio knows what they can fully do with Jaylen Ramsey in there. I know you've got the Jalen Phillips injury. I know you've got the Jerome Baker injury. Javon Holland was out. I set all that stuff aside. I think it's mostly about Vic Fangio and Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard and what you can do there. And then you start working inside and up front with Christian Wilkins and Zach Seeder. But it's the NFL. It's passing. You got to stop that passing game. And whether it's by blitzing or by sitting back in coverage, you've got to find out what you do best. And I think Fangio is going through that process right now. Again, he's just not traditionally much of a blitzer as far as I know. So we'll see how he handles the Dolphins going forward. Elliot Javigian, Fangio coaches not to lose rather than dominate and win. Your thoughts on that?
Coaches not to lose. Well, okay. Yeah. Yep. Right. Well, that's sort of the idea of the prevent when you're going prevent late. Yeah. Now his defense is predicated on two things. It's not giving up the big plays, which is something you want your defense always doing, and also putting guys in position to force turnovers. So those are to make plays. So those are two things that you want. And the second one is sort of a dominate and win sort of mentality. The first one is that more passive style. So I think it kind of combines the two. And I mean, we're just saying that now off of two late drives allowed to lose a game, whereas when they were number one from week 5 through the previous week, then it wasn't an issue. Everything was lovely at that point. And Jaylen Ramsey was picking off passes in the end zone to seal it. 2 in one game, 3 in his first 3 games. So Yeah, it's a number of things, and I think having the two safeties out was a big part of that late the way that game ended.
Yep. All right, Feronas, it's prediction time, baby. Who you got? Dolphins, Jets, Hard Rock Stadium. I am going in what might be a surprising final score. Dolphins 21, Jets 14. You got to watch Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, the Jets corners, especially if Tyreek is not healthy. You got to watch Garrett Wilson, the Jets wide receiver. Now, Breece Hall, I think last week, if I'm not mistaken, had 126 yards from scrimmage, 86 yards receiving. And Garrett Wilson had 9 receptions for 108 yards in that 30-6 victory over Houston. So with the Dolphins, I'm watching their health on the offensive line and with Tyreek Hill's left ankle on the short week. And the Dolphins must stay focused on the Jets, not look ahead to Dallas. Hopefully Tennessee took care of that looking ahead and only playing for 57 minutes and not 60 minutes thing. They got to stay focused. Your thoughts, Feronas? Who's winning?
Yeah, I mean, Tua's got to watch Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, and I hope he's watching for Brandon Eccles, who has his number, has 2 pick sixes in his career on him, including the one on Black Friday.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I know the Jets are coming in hot now. 30-6, they just crushed the Houston Texans. That defense, all of a sudden, well, I mean, the defense we knew would be good, but Zach Wilson has some maybe refound confidence. But ultimately, I don't know why you said your score was such a surprise. I feel like it's right on par. And so I have Dolphins 23, Jets 16. So yeah, I have your same score, and then the two teams scoring a safety on top of it. Now, just some more field goals in the mix there to get it to 23-16, but still a touchdown win, which I believe is New York covering because I think it's a 9-point spread last I saw. Maybe the line has been moving. I know it was over double digits before the Dolphins lost to the Titans, but yeah, although we saw the Dolphins cover at MetLife Stadium, you would think, okay, yeah, when they come back home, similar thing. But just right now, the team is reeling a little bit after that last game. Offense it's going to be more of a struggle on offense, but the run game should get going, and I think Tua will be better than he just was against the Titans. So one thing about him, he bounces back, whether it's an interception and then he bounces back on the next series, or I think after a tough game, he likes to bounce back after that. I know it was a big deal for him to have the 2 deep touchdowns and no interceptions, no turnovers against Washington. He felt like that was a big bounce back after all those weeks of having at least 1 turnover. And it's sort of mounting on him, especially with that Jets game, the 2 interceptions late in the half, one of them for a pick 6. So I think he's a good bounce back type of quarterback.
Well, he better be. A lot of people are picking a low score. I picked a low score. You're picking a low score. Rob, 20, Dolphins 23, Jets 10. Judy Williams, I'll pick the Dolphins to beat the Jets 16-13 in a total death struggle. And if they are looking ahead to the Cowboys, the Jets could easily win. I agree, Judy. Raphael Courtwright, 24-23, Dolphins versus Jets. I hope I'm right. John Yang, you read John Yang's mind. He said, don't forget about Eccles. Then he said, thank you, David. So you read his mind. Elliot Javizian, Dolphins put a 30-burger on the Jets. How about that? That's interesting. Let's see if I can read this one right off here from Peter Morangel. It's a team game, not like golf. Where was the defense in the last 4 minutes? Not at all on Tua and the offense. The defense for play calling and no blocking. I put it on. Look, Austin Jackson said it best. The right tackle, heavy is the crown. That's why I put it on the offense. You're an offensive team. This is the offensive identity. Mike McDaniel, Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, Raheem Mostert. That's how you win games. That's your identity. I think that identity might be about to change a little bit, might be about to shift, but Peter, that's why I say the offense. That's why I point to the offense. That's how you win games.
Yeah, and also to wrap up on the defensive play calling, there was some miscommunication. So it's like the Dolphins' defense, the players on the field didn't execute the correct calls that were made, and that's why. So guys were out of position. There were misassignments that led to some of these things. So, yeah, I mean, you put it on Fangio, but you also put it on the players to not execute because what we saw wasn't even what Fangio called. The players didn't execute it properly.
How much of a factor? They talked a lot about execution, and Duke Riley was saying that one way that you overcome missing personnel is over communication, and that even if you run the wrong play, as long as you communicate and everybody's on the same page, it kind of makes up for that. You didn't have two of your quarterbacks of the defense, Jerome Baker and Javon Holland. Was that a factor?
Yeah, I mean, it's a factor to be down some players. Sorry, wait, what were you saying about them? Because I was also reading all the Brazil updates on Twitter
right.
as we're going.
But those are, Duke Riley was saying when you're missing personnel, one way that you overcome that is by over communicating, and that even if you have a incorrect call, as long as you over communicate and everybody's on the same page, you can kind of make up for that. Now, two of the quarterbacks, Jerome Baker and Javon Holland, are not on the field. Right. Could that have been a factor in the late game defense execution calls?
Yeah, because you always hear Javon Holland is the quarterback of the secondary, and then Jerome Baker, obviously, he's the one that gives us all the signals, he wears the green dot for the Dolphins defense. Now, Duke Riley, I do trust a lot in that role. I mean, he's a good communicator. We see that. I mean, he's a guy he's the one that's even saying it, and he's also just that type of over communicator. He likes to be a leader, even when he isn't in that starting role, and he's sort of a guy off the bench that's maybe like in basketball, you'd say a glue guy, like Shane Battier was, something like that with the Heat, with those big three Heat. So that's the type of guy that you like on your team, and that you like when the situation arises where you need someone to step in and be that communicator on a defense. So, yeah, I have no worries about him. And then, just being down two safeties, one of them being the quarterback of the secondary in Javon Holland is huge.
All right, Coronas, we're going to wrap this up on two things here on the chat line. We appreciate everybody on this joining us here. From Tony Reese, one thing that I didn't even take into account and is going to ruin my plans to play golf on Saturday: rainy weather, low scoring game, 17-11. So tell me about that. And Elliot says team adopts the personality of their coach, and Dolphins got bullied by Tennessee. Your thoughts on those two things as we close out here?
Yeah, well, yeah, there was a little bit of a bully factor to most of that game, honestly. Now the Dolphins, they did hold their own, because when you think of a Titans team bullying you, you think it's Derrick Henry pounding you nonstop. Now they held him to 30-something yards, but down by the goal line, they weren't able to stop him. A couple of touchdowns, one of them out of a wildcat. So that was one thing. Monday night in Miami, the Titans pull out a wildcat with Derrick Henry, a play that the Dolphins brought back into the NFL 15 years ago in a famous playoff run. Last time they won the division. I mean, the Titans, they are that type of team, rough, tough, bully team. So if you lose to them, then there's some of that factor. And I like to score with an 11 in there. Last year's Dolphins-Jets game at Hard Rock Stadium, that was 11-6. Because there was the Jason Sanders key field goal and then a safety to cap it off.
Right. All right. Our poll: do the Dolphins win against the Jets? 73% said yes, 26% said no. And Spree Brown from the chat line says stick to the run. That's all for this edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next Tuesday at noon, sunsentinel.com.